History is often shaped by grand narratives, by sweeping pronouncements of ideologies and ambitions, yet sometimes the course of human events takes a decisive turn, not on the battlefield or in the halls of power, but in the quiet whispers of miscommunication. The Cold War, a global standoff that held the world captive for nearly half a century, was one such instance where a simple mistake, a misconstrued phrase, may have tipped the scales from uneasy peace to a deep freeze in relations between the United States and the Soviet Union. The world emerged from the ashes of World War II wounded but hopeful. Yet, beneath the surface of this shared victory, a current of suspicion was already pulling the two emerging superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, in opposite directions. Their wartime alliance, forged in the crucible of conflict, began to fray as the common enemy was vanquished. The seeds of the Cold War were sown in this fertile ground of suspicion, where every action, every statement was scrutinized for hidden meanings and hostile intent. The wartime alliance between the United States and the Soviet Union, while instrumental in defeating Nazi Germany, was a marriage of convenience, born more out of necessity than shared values. The two nations, with their diametrically opposed ideologies and visions for the post-war world, were always uneasy bedfellows. As the guns fell silent in Europe and Asia, the cracks in their fragile partnership began to widen, revealing the deep-seated mistrust that simmered beneath the surface. The United States, having emerged from the war relatively unscathed and economically powerful, championed a vision of a world order rooted in democratic principles, free markets, and the unfettered flow of information and commerce. The Soviet Union, on the other hand, bearing the scars of a brutal invasion and harboring deep suspicions of the West, sought to secure its borders and consolidate its influence in Eastern Europe. These divergent visions for the post-war order set the stage for a clash of ideologies, a global chess match where each move was laden with strategic significance. The struggle for influence played out on multiple fronts: political, economic, and ideological. As the United States and the Soviet Union navigated the treacherous terrain of the post-war world, misunderstandings and misinterpretations became increasingly common, fanning the flames of mistrust. One such incident, often cited by historians as a pivotal moment in the descent into the Cold War, involved a seemingly innocuous phrase uttered by Soviet leader Joseph Stalin, misinterpreted by a translator and perceived by the United States as a chilling threat. The incident occurred during a meeting between Stalin and US officials in the aftermath of World War II. Discussing the future of Europe, Stalin used a Russian proverb, "The strong do what they can, and the weak suffer what they must." This phrase, intended as a statement of realpolitik, was tragically mistranslated, reinforcing the United States' worst fears about Soviet intentions. The mistranslated phrase uttered by Stalin had a cascading effect on US-Soviet relations. It solidified the United States' perception of the Soviet Union as an aggressive and untrustworthy adversary, reinforcing the belief that containment of Soviet expansionism was the only viable option. This perceived threat from the East galvanized the United States into action, setting in motion a series of policies and initiatives collectively known as the Containment Strategy. The Truman Doctrine, announced in 1947, pledged US support to any nation threatened by communist expansionism. The Marshall Plan, launched in the same year, provided billions of dollars in economic aid to war-torn European nations. The Soviet Union, viewing these moves as hostile acts, responded in kind, consolidating its control over Eastern Europe and embarking on its own nuclear weapons program. The division of Europe was complete. The metaphorical Iron Curtain had descended, splitting the continent into two armed camps. The Cold War, once ignited by misunderstandings and fueled by ideological animosity, took on a life of its own, becoming a self-perpetuating cycle of suspicion and mistrust. Every action by one side, no matter how well-intentioned, was met with suspicion and countered by the other. This dynamic, often referred to as the security dilemma, created an environment where even genuine attempts at détente were viewed with skepticism. The nuclear arms race exemplified this vicious cycle. with each new weapon system developed by one side seen as a threat by the other. Proxy wars, fought on the peripheries of the superpower rivalry, further exacerbated tensions. From Korea to Vietnam, from Afghanistan to Angola, the United States and the Soviet Union supported opposing sides in regional conflicts. The Cold War, though primarily a contest between the United States and the Soviet Union, cast a long shadow over the entire world, influencing the course of global politics. The rivalry between the superpowers permeated every aspect of international relations, turning even seemingly unrelated issues into ideological battlegrounds. The struggle for influence extended to the newly independent nations of Asia, Africa, and Latin America. This competition often manifested in the form of economic aid, military assistance, and covert operations. The Cold War also had a profound impact on the development of international organizations, most notably the United Nations. The Security Council, the UN's most powerful body, was frequently paralyzed by vetoes from the United States or the Soviet Union. The Cold War, despite its peaceful conclusion, continues to cast a long shadow over international relations, a chilling reminder of the dangers of unchecked rivalry and the perils of miscommunication. The lessons learned from this era of global standoff remain as relevant today as they were at the height of the superpower confrontation. The importance of clear and effective communication, of bridging cultural and ideological divides to foster understanding, cannot be overstated. The Cold War serves as a stark reminder that even seemingly insignificant miscommunications can have far-reaching and devastating consequences. The Cold War offers a valuable lesson in the importance of seeking common ground and recognizing that cooperation, not confrontation, is the only sustainable path to a more peaceful